Hello, welcome to another TeacherToken tutorial. We're going to be looking at flowcharts, which will cover 1.2.1 in topic 1 of Edexcel's GCSE Computer Science course. Let's have a look at the different flowchart. Let me change that. So you're going to have lines, which are called flow lines. And you just need to remember all these symbols. I say you need to remember them. Often you find in an exam actually sort of show them to you, but you just should know them for general knowledge. Input and output, these parallelograms. So they will be doing anything to do with input to the system or output to the system. Like for example, a print statement would be output. Input would be anything that the user types in. Now any process that's done is going to be our standard rectangle, and probably the most important is the rhombus here, diamond shape, which will denote a decision. If there's a decision made, like an if conditional statement or as part of a loop, you're going to be using those. There is another symbol which isn't used very much, but it is technically part of Edexcel specification, and that's a subroutine. Okay, so if you see a rectangle, a bit like the process box, but within these two lines inside, that means a subroutine. It's calling another program within a program, essentially. And then the easiest one is the terminal, which you always start a flowchart with a terminal called start, and you always end it with a terminal. Those you need to know. You need to know those, and the biggest one that students might forget will be the parallelogram for input and output. That's very typical for students to get wrong. So let's have a look at some questions. Let's have a look at some exam style questions. I think that's going to be the best thing for us to do. So customers can get a voucher for their favorite item. Customers whose favorite item is ice cream get a voucher for ice cream. Customers whose favorite item is cookies, it gets a voucher for the cookies, and customers who do not choose either get a voucher for drinks. Complete the flowchart. So they've already started you off, and it's 6 marks. So they've started you off on this journey, which is pretty generous of them, I think. And they've also put the parallelogram in there. So this would show us that we need to have input into the system. So, I mean, the clue's here because it says choice equals ice cream. Well, we don't know what the choice is yet. So here, you could just put choose ice cream or cookies. And the good thing about flowcharts is that they're universally accepted and the same around the world. You could go into any company that any employee that understands flowcharts, and they'll be able to follow your logic process. So if you weren't an app developer, if you didn't know any programming, but you knew what you wanted your system to do, like if maybe you're an owner of a cinema or something like that, you could write and draw your algorithm as a flowchart, give it to a programmer, and then they would take this flowchart and put it into higher level language like Python from it. So choose ice cream or cookies. This is our input. Okay, you don't write that. It's just as a note to show you. And when you're doing these, you've got to make sure you've got arrows with for the flow lines. They've put them in for you, which is a massive bonus here. So choice does equal ice cream. Okay, does equals when you've got those two equal signs, either yes or no. Well, if it does say yes, we're done. Customers get a voucher for ice cream. Okay, so it says print ice cream voucher. So we've got, this is going to be stop. Really nice and easy question so far. What's the other option we could have? Well, we know we could have another yes option, so I've got to put this arrow in there, and I've got to put another decision that could be made. What's the other choice? Does equal cookies. Those are the only two options, weren't they? So if it was yes, and I have to label it yes with the arrow going from the rhombus, then I print the cookie voucher and then I stop the algorithm. It's done. So the last thing that's needed here is to keep on going to get customers who do not choose either get a voucher for drinks. So there is an output there, similar in vein to this. It's an output for print drink voucher, and then the algorithm stops. So you've got your three different options there, and the two decisions would be the yes or no, and the third one, if they haven't chosen any between ice cream and cookies, they print the voucher and it stops. That's a really nice 6-mark question. They give you a lot of scaffolding, a lot of help with it, and that would really bolster your marks. So hopefully you get one like that, but I would imagine they'll probably be a little bit meaner. They might just give you a blank page and you just have to start from scratch, which is usually what I see. So we'll do a harder one now. Okay. An algorithm is required that allows a user to enter 2 numbers. And they've given you the symbols to help you with this. And it's a 6-mark question, but it says draw a flowchart to show. So they're not going to give you any extra help there. They've given you the symbols. Know that there would be another one, subroutine, but we don't need to know that for this. Obviously, we're not using subroutines for this question. Otherwise, we would have added it in. The algorithm then is required that allows the user to enter 2 numbers. 2 numbers. The algorithm then informs the user which number is greater, or whether the 2 numbers are equal. The algorithm is expressed in a flowchart. Fine. Here are the flowchart symbols. Draw a flowchart to show this algorithm. So let's do that. Let's do that here. We start. I'll use a different color actually. We start with that oval shape, the terminal. Then we have to have a flow arrow with the arrow head, and we need to have 2 things from the user, and that input box is a parallelogram. So I'm going to write I'm going to draw a parallelogram. Input number 1. Then we need another number from them. So I'm going to do exactly the same, but I'm going to call this input number 2. So already I'm actually starting to do quite well here. I would at least, you would probably get a mark just by having the start and the stop terminators and the input 1 and 2. So as long as I end my algorithm at some point, let's just put it in here, end. As long as I've got an end to my algorithm, I'm pretty sure I've got 1 mark for this and 1 mark for the terminators. So that should give you a little bit of confidence. It's not too bad so far. Now we've got some logic to do. So what does it ask? It says the algorithm then informs the user which number is greater, or whether the 2 numbers are equal. So we've got a decision to make. And the first decision, I think, the easiest thing to do would be to make first of all the correct flowchart symbol for a decision is number 1, or you could put, I think I'm going to put number 2, question mark. You could get away with just having 1 equal sign, I think, there. Are those 2 numbers the same? That's the main thing you've got to have in there. And there are 2 options from that. There are 2 ways. It could either be no, they're not, or yes, they are. Let me put a capital N. So let's just say yes, they are. It informs the user. So if they found that the two numbers are the same, then we inform the user with an output, a print statement. So we can just say display equal, and then end the program. We're done. We've checked the two numbers. They're equal the same thing. What else do we need to do? We're finished. Okay, done. However, if they weren't equal, what do we want to check for next? Okay, well then we've got another decision to make. Another rhombus. Is num1 greater than number 2? Question mark. Is it greater? And there are two options. If it is, then again we can have our parallelogram for output. We can display number 1 greater, and then it's going to end. And I'm going to keep this line going on because I need another thing, don't I? Because if I've got no, what else can I do? What else can I do? If is number 1 greater than number 2? Well, if the other option is, the only other option is display number 2 is greater. Okay, it's not a decision doesn't need to be made then. It's just an output statement because we've already checked whether it's greater or not. If it's not greater, then the only other option, because they're not the same, we've already checked that, is to output that number 2 is greater. So this would be certainly enough to get your 6 marks. I think you would need to have these two at least these output statements. You would need to have all these labeled. You would need to have this, you'd need to have your terminators, and you definitely need to have your decisions, at least these two. So yes, you will encounter other flowchart style questions. I hope that's enough to give you a taste of exam style questions and to make sure that you understand the function of each of those symbols. If that's helpful, let me know. If you want more on this, also let me know, and good luck. See you in the next video.